In this episode, I will cover two stories, both about people crossing boundaries. One of them done by outsiders, and the other involving Lolitas. A couple of years ago, I went to a high tea with my local community. It was in a small cafe. We were seated at a long, narrow table with food set up on tiers, and everyone was sitting cozy. Nobody was going anywhere. We were all eating and enjoying our tea. I wasn't the one who organized this event, but we basically had booked out the whole space. There were a few tables that could seat 2 people, and there was also an area where people could walk in and grab pastries to go. As you would expect, people who came into the establishment for tea or just to retrieve pastries asked us about our fashion and our community and our meetup. It was pretty normal and typical. Everybody who asked was very polite and were just doing so because they were curious, and we sort of answered them and then they wrapped up and left us alone. Very normal, typical high tea. The cafe had a large window storefront where you could see us from the street, although there were some displays that were kind of breaking the barrier in between us, so there was a little bit of space, and people walking by, of course, would look at us and you kind of get the fishbowl effect, but nobody stayed too long or loitered, just passerbys. People forget that when you look into a window, it's not a one-way mirror. The people on the other side can still see you. But anyways, it was pretty minimal and normal until the family came. A family entered the cafe very loudly and boisterously and started demanding pictures with us and asking why we were dressed up and who we were. They weren't there for the pastries, they weren't there to support the business. They literally came in off the street into an establishment because they saw us from the outside. I couldn't really see them because when they came into the cafe, they burst in behind me and I wasn't facing them. The father was standing directly behind me, shouting all kinds of typical things that someone who's not informed about Lolita would say. All the stereotypes, hit every nail on the head. Normally, I'm the kind of person who says something because I've dealt with this for so many years. I have so much experience when it comes to people who don't understand Lolita, people who aren't familiar with it. But I was frozen, head down, staring at my plate because when they walked in, one of them shouted something about YouTube. And not positive things. Quite contrary. I just wanted to enjoy my very expensive meal. It was also just awkward having them directly behind me. And if I was in fact the YouTuber that they were talking about and I revealed myself, I was afraid that I would just provoke them more. One of my friends who was sitting across from me, who is a moderator of the community, tried to explain to these people that we were just there to eat, we weren't there to entertain anyone, we're just people in clothes trying to enjoy a meal. The staff tried intervening because, we were paid customers, and tried to ask the family if they were actually going to order something because, that's why you go into cafes, to eat food, to get desserts, not to gawk at people. This was met with even more anger and confusion. The family shouted things like, if you're gonna dress up like this, you need to expect to have your photo taken, and obviously you're dressing like this because you want people to photograph you. And he really should have watched my video. It's one thing to ask a group of people who's out and about in a public space for a photo. It's more acceptable and understandable, and you should always do so politely and always ask permission. And if you're being photographed, you should feel comfortable to say yes or no, and if you're in a public space, you can say no and walk away. But if you're in a restaurant, in a very crowded space, a narrow table, half of the table is against a wall, blocked by other people, there's no escape. I really don't understand how these people justified their actions to themselves. Because we were dressed up? Just remove that element and think about it. You're coming into a cafe, a high-end cafe, an upscale, expensive cafe, where people are sitting and enjoying high tea, which is an expensive thing, and you're interrupting them eating and demanding photos? I did not address the family at all. I didn't even look at them. I just stared straight forward, and my fellow Lolitas shooed them out of the restaurant. The staff asked them to leave, and that was the end of it. Wonder where that family is now. I want to preface this by saying that I don't think these girls meant any harm. I don't think that they had bad intent. However, they did cross boundaries. I think it was about I went on a weekend trip with some friends for one of my friends' birthday. The focus was to celebrate my friend and their birthday, and we hadn't scheduled in anything Lolita related, but I did bring some Lolita clothes just to wear for the fun of it. I had not reached out to the Lolita community in this area or planned an event or a meetup, so this trip had nothing to do with the Lolita community. It was just focusing on my friend's birthday. The three of us kind of planned out different days to do specific things that we wanted to do and share. We sort of planned a day where we would all wear our own style of J fashion. One of them wearing Mori K, the other wearing Gyaru, and I was wearing Lolita. And around that time, I had just started using Twitter again. I've left and come back to Twitter probably 3 times and deleted my account and then remade it, just because it's hard for me to be on a text-based platform because I'm dyslexic and I have a visual processing disorder on top of that. But I had rejoined it because the 2 friends I was with used it a lot and we wanted to share our adventure. Once I had rejoined Twitter, I started tweeting everything. I didn't really think about it because I had the smallest amount of following on Twitter since I had just made it. I had maybe 1,000 followers. However, I was pretty much live tweeting everything and everywhere we went. We went into which is a building with multiple stories and shops in it. And we started taking a look around when 2 girls approached me. They had recognized me from the internet, and I believe one of them was wearing Lolita and the other was not. I think that this was my first time meeting fans outside of a convention or an event or meetup, and I didn't really know what to do. The 2 girls seemed kind but kind of awkward and didn't really say anything. They just sort of stood there. I asked them a little bit about themselves, and I explained why we were there and how I wasn't there to do a meetup or an event or convention or anything. I was just celebrating a friend's birthday. And things continued to be a little awkward, and I just chalked it up to them being nervous and kind of shocked to see me there. They probably were just shopping around and didn't expect me to be there. And I just didn't know how to wrap up this interaction. So I asked if they wanted to take a photo with me, because in my experience, people usually want to take a photo, but they're sometimes too afraid to ask, so I figured I would ask for them, and then maybe that's what they wanted, and that's why they were still sort of standing there. And so I took a photo with them, and then the awkwardness continued. I, politely as possible, try to say goodbye to them and thank them for saying hi, and just sort of try to rejoin my friends in the store. And I noticed that their still in the store. But that's normal. I mean, when you run into somebody in public and then, you know, you have your interaction and go your separate ways, you're still in the same area. You're probably still there for a reason, to be shopping, to be doing something. So you tend to bump into each other again and cross paths, and you just kind of go like, hi, hey again, and like continue on. So I didn't think that it was that strange that they were still in the store, because I figured, you know, they're still shopping. My friends and I were actually talking to the shop staff, and then we kind of were there for a little while, and then we went to the next story, which had another shop in it. And when we left the first shop, we noticed that the girls were still there, and they followed us up to the next shop. They left at the same time as us and were going to the same shop as us. But I still kind of figured, oh, they're out and about shopping the same way that we are. My friends and I spent a lot of time at the next store, probably close to an hour, and the girls came in when we did and stayed, and at first they were looking around, but then they just were there and seemed kind of bored and weren't looking around, were just sort of standing around. I started to get a little bit uncomfortable because, you know, if they were just shopping and they were bored, then wouldn't they move on to the next store? It was starting to feel like they were treating this like a Lolita meetup. And I can't stress again that it was not a Lolita meetup. It was very clearly not a Lolita meetup, as I was the only one of my two friends wearing Lolita. And I told them explicitly that I wasn't there for a Lolita meetup. I wasn't there with the community, and I apologized for that. And I told them that I was just there with my friends. We get to the bottom of the building where there's a cafe, and my friends and I had planned to eat there. And I'm trying to say goodbye to the girls, and my friend is talking to the server and getting ready to seat us. And then the girls say that they were planning on eating there too. And because we're standing there together, the server sits them with us. And all of us are too polite and awkward to say anything about it. So I think to myself, you know, these girls are nice. They're just a little bit nervous, and we'll eat lunch with them and then we'll go our separate ways. I still think to myself, this isn't weird. They're just hungry. Everybody has to eat. They've been shopping the same way that we have, and it's been a little while, and this is the closest place, so they just must want to eat. So we're all sitting together, eating lunch, and I'm trying to carry the conversation and include the girls so that they're not left out. Also kind of keep up with my friends and make sure that I'm not ignoring them. And over the course of our meal, I'm talking with these girls, and I had thought that they were just shopping in the area and happened to see me and just said hi, but that wasn't the case at all. What I come to realize over the course of our meal is that these two girls intentionally came here to see me, and that they weren't just close by, they drove an hour to do so, because I'd said that I was at this location. So they came specifically to see me while I was just out with my friends, and they had driven over an hour just to do this. It was no coincidence. Now, this would be completely different if I was at a convention, if I was at a meetup or an event, and I specifically said like, hey, I'm at this place, I'm doing a meet and greet, come see me. Or I can't wait to see you all at this convention, or I can't wait to see you at this event. But I had only tweeted that I was out with my friends shopping in. I immediately had so many regrets. I had made this horribly awkward situation for my friends because I was tweeting where we were. I shouldn't have been live tweeting where we were. That's when this went from an awkward off-chance encounter to, oh wait a minute, I'm uncomfortable. From this point forward, things just got more awkward. We finished our lunch and tried to say goodbye to these girls, and they just sort of didn't leave. They followed us. They weren't really with us. They were just sort of near us. They followed us a few feet behind and weren't really active in our conversations. Next shop, next place, the girls closely behind us. At this point, they're not even really talking to us, just sort of observing us. Part of me just wanted to turn around and say to them, "It was very lovely meeting you 8 hours ago. Now this is starting to feel like stalking." The sun goes down, and at this point it had been basically all day, and we decided that we were finished with that area and going to a different one. The girls catch up to us and we explain that we are leaving, and then they ask where we are going. We explain that we're trying to call an Uber, and the girls ask if they can come with us in the Uber, and to get out of that, we explain that we won't all fit in the Uber, and the girls are relenting that they don't want to lose their parking spot, they don't want to leave, and so, you know, we can just part ways now. Say goodbye. They also ask us to call them an Uber because they don't have Uber on their phone. This was my first encounter with fans outside of a convention, outside of an event, outside of a meetup. I just wish so much that I could go back to my past self and just be upfront, just be forward, just tell them, "It was nice meeting you, goodbye, we are leaving, we need to go separate ways." I wish that I could go back with the knowledge that I have now and deal with this situation. We were trying not to tell them where exactly we were going, but it was also hard to communicate between my two friends, the three of us, where we were going, what we were doing, without having them overhear. So they figured out where we were going. We get into the Uber safely and we say goodbye, and they say that they will meet us at... It was getting close to the time that the shop was closing and we were cutting it really short, but we actually made a detour on the way because my friends and I had to pick up some stuff really quickly from somewhere else, and then we went to the store that we had been planning to go. We had only about 15 minutes before the store closed when we got there, and a shop staff came up to me and asked, "Are you Lore?" And I thought, I'm so popular, I'm so famous, I've just been stalked for the last 8 to 10 hours, and now this random employee recognizes me. But I was not that famous. I say to them, "Why, yes I am." And then the employee tells me, "These two strange girls were just here looking for you, and they wanted to leave a note for you, but our shop doesn't really allow that, so I told them no." The employee gave me this look like she was totally creeped out, and I apologized. Now listen, I want to meet my fans, and I hope that I don't sound like a blowhard for sharing this story, but boundaries are important. If you see a Lolita in public, please know that they are not obligated to entertain you or to host an event for you or to treat you as if you are at a meetup. Even with Lolita events and communities, a lot of the time you have to RSVP ahead of time or get in communication with the community before you start coming to events or just showing up at meetups. If you see someone in public that you admire or follow, please survey the situation. If they are out doing day-to-day things, living their daily lives, spending time with family or friends, please remember that you are invading their space. And please keep your interactions polite and brief, because they don't live to entertain people. YouTubers, actors, and different celebrities, they have off and on times. Even if it isn't like a 9 to 5 thing, they do have select times when they are entertaining people and when they're just being people. If you want a better experience meeting somebody, try to find them at an event or a convention or a meetup that's specifically aimed to meet fans. This goes for Lolitas too. If you want to spend time with Lolitas or make Lolita friends, think about joining your local community or go to conventions or events specifically for that. A lot of Lolita communities are on Facebook now, you can just search for them, or it also helps to go to conventions and look for Lolitas and ask them about your local comm. I stopped live tweeting the places that I go after this, and I learned a lot about how to engage with fans and how to disengage. Please don't be discouraged to say hi to me if you see me in public. I honestly love meeting fans and I love taking photos with people, but please just keep it brief. If you want to meet me and have a longer, better experience, please find me at a convention or an event where I'm specifically there to meet people. And please don't be afraid to say hi to me if you see me in the street. Just remember that that is kind of my off-camera, off-time, and that I might be doing other things or, you know. Just please don't follow me for multiple hours.